So when I was younger, I wanted to be firstly a cashier, right? And it was, maybe I was like 6, I don't know, something like that, really young, but I liked counting money. I really did. That was all it was. When I got into high school, like around 8th grade, so I'm about 12, 13, I wanted to be a hotelier, right? So hotel management was my thing. I really liked the diversity of everything. So I used to draw like the building, like how I wanted to see my building looking and who was gonna be here, there, and how was I gonna, and all of that management. I come from a family business, right? So and the parents that are entrepreneurs, and so that was, I think some of that framing was coming from, okay, I want to do this, and it just seemed so diverse. That's what I really liked. It was so diverse, like so many pieces to it, and people come and have a good time, and I'm managing and all of that. Anyway, and then by the time I reached it was business that I was going towards, and my business was going to be hotels. I went to a liberal arts college, and we had to do psychology, right? As everybody had to do psychology, intro to psychology, all of that. And it was the first time that I had a form of a psychology class. We don't, certainly back then, we didn't have anything in psychology or sociology or things like that, nothing like that. And I was absolutely, everything just turned. Every single thing turned for that class. It's just fascinating to me how people work, how people think, how they and why they do the things that they do. Why do they behave that way? So that was what just sunk it really for me, because that was like mind blown. I was mind blown. I just was mind blown. And that's where psychology really just came up. It was like, but this is so obvious. This is so me. This is what I want to do. So then after that, I was like, I've got to go further with this, because by then I would have researched everything and recognized that at a bachelor's level, that doesn't do anything for you in psychology, So whereas it might have been helpful for business, right? It's not going to take me anywhere psychologically. So I went straight. I need to do my master's and my doctoral degree. And so I actually came home and worked after my bachelor's and worked for a year as a guidance counselor at my alma mater, Immaculate, right? And so I did that for a year. And then while I was applying to grad school and all of that, got into the program at the Miami Institute of Psychology, now called the Carlos Albizu University, and did my master's and my doctoral degree there. And it was always my intention after that to come back home. I applied for several positions and so on. One of them was at the University of the West Indies, and the hospital in the Department of Psychiatry. And I got that job. And I was there for 15 years. 15 years of a lot of learning, a lot of expansion of my capacity, because even though I came back and I have a doctoral degree, there's still so much to learn. So I'm at UWI for 15 years, from 2001 to 2016. And during that time, UWI has a system that they allow you, or certainly in my department, we have like a session afternoon that we are allowed to do clinical practice. So it's a thing you'll notice a lot of people that work at UWI as practitioners, they have their private practice that they may go to once or twice or whatever it is for the week. So it started off like that, right? And I started off working out of Professor Hicklin, who was my head of department at the time. Used his space for a time period. Used Dr. Wendell Abel, who was also one of my colleagues in psychiatry at the time. His space, and then this space here where I am now came next. The brand was me for a long time, and when I switched here, I started to make clear efforts to brand it as a team, practice, because by then I did not have a lot of people with me. But what I had started to do by then is to start to get help with assessments. So assessments are very tedious. It's a very tedious process, very long. We deliver like 30 to 40 page reports at times, and the testing portion when they're in our office can go up 10 hours or more, that we break up. So it's a long, tedious process. And I was finding that I cannot do this by myself and get the demand and meet the demand. The name is Dr. K.A.D. Morgan and Associates. Right now, I'll tell you, I say right now because we just formed a nonprofit called Kale Journey. Kale is Kahle, it's well in Zulu. One of the associates that is in the practice now, Javila Ho, she's one of my close friends and colleague now. I taught her long ago when she did the program. She did the program long ago, right? And that is how our friendship began and grew. And the two of us have a passion for creating trauma-informed societies. And that's what that organization is about. What we have dedicated in this organization to do is to help to spread the message across Jamaica and the Caribbean around how we can be more trauma-informed in 4 areas. So we've made Kale, the name, into an acronym which forms the 4 departments in the business, in the organization. So K is for cultivating with a K, which is our research department. A is advocacy. H is healing, which is our interventions department, interventions and therapy and assessments. And that's where this practice comes in, right? And then learning experiences is LE, right? And that's our training and education department, right? So I say that all of that because the vision is that this is a part of Kale, right? Of Kale Journey. So right now it's Dr. K.A.D. Morgan and Associates, but it is our intention for it to be, we haven't settled on the name, but it will be something like Kale Healing Center or, something along those lines. I expect within the next year or 2 that we should firm that up and make it, so they're the two organizations. This is for profit, right? I mean, we have to earn some way, right? And then we have the non-profit, right? Which has its remit and which has been moving very fast. Therapy is a process that is it's important to understand what it really means, because there are a lot of misconceptions, and some people will come down and sit down in this very office and be, after this first session, they're like, oh, okay, is that what I thought? So I don't know. Some people have different misconceptions, right? So that's an important piece around understanding what those are. Some people think that it is for when you're like at the bottom of the barrel and there's no way up, and that's the only time you go, and I think it's important for people to realize that therapy is none of all of that, right? Because it can be what you make it out to be. We have people that have come and said, listen, we just need to talk about this particular issue. I'd love to get your take on it. And they're gone, right? And we have people that are like, listen, we want to dig deeper into why we do this, why it is I'm doing this thing, or why it is I have these father issues, or whatever it is. And they dig deep and they do that work. And we have others that come like, listen, I'm having panic attacks and I would really just like to lessen the panic attacks, right? And so how many sessions, or something like that. And maybe they need about 6 to learn some tools or something like that. So it can be any and it's always about the client. That's an important thing to recognize, because I realize that people sometimes feel like they won't have a choice. And that's very interesting to me. So they feel like they come in and it's like they must do this or that. And it is the culture of of medicine, right? It's a very biomedical model, very much a biomedical model where you this is the big doctor who tells you what to do and you must just do it, right? And very hierarchical. But therapy is not that. Therapy is very integrative, very much a collaboration, right? So it's very much about, if you don't like something that I'm doing, I think it could work for you, but if you don't like it, you're very open to say, Doc, I'm not going there today. I don't really want to go there. I don't want to talk about that. And that's something that in our training we honor. There are times when we have to try to maybe push a little bit, for those that need to be pushed. But for the most part, we follow the agenda of the client, right? What are your goals? Why did you come here? What are your goals, right? If you need some help with that, we're here too. Say, what do you think, Doc? Okay, I can tell you, I think I see this issue and this issue coming up. You want us to tackle that? Let's talk about that kind of thing, So you do have a lot of your own control. It is not a process where we're going to hypnotize you and and make you sleepy and and all of that. It is not a process where, even though I have a sofa here, you have to lie down on the sofa. Many people choose the chair if they're more comfortable. Some people choose the ground. It's fine. It is for anxiety, and there are many different types of anxiety. Anxiety is big. It is the biggest mental health problem that we have in our youth, at least. Anxiety can include things like having a panic attack, right? Or it can mean things like having a phobia, right? We have lizard phobias here in Jamaica. People have some real lizard phobias here. I've not seen it anywhere else. And that's that same supervisor I mentioned, Dr. Bridget Mattis, did a study on it one time because she was just like, this is a phenomenon of Jamaica. Anyway, so we have phobias, and there are all kind of phobias, from lizard to heights to claustrophobia, small spaces, to agoraphobia, a fear of the crowd, right? Going in public spaces, test anxiety, right? Which a lot of our kids have at times. All these things are things that therapy addresses, right? Personality disorders, right, is another example. That's a big one. Personality disorders are things that it's as it suggests, it tends to be the person's personality, but it is not helpful for them. They are not like obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So with an obsessive compulsive personality disorder, this person is such a perfectionist that everything they're doing has to just be that, like this, but then they miss the whole point, miss the deadline for the thing that they're tidying up so well. They, all these different things, and it causes problems in your relationships. And there are several different personality disorders, but the hallmark of all of them is that they cause problems for you. So I do have my own psychologist, my own therapist. I always have, It was something that was instilled in me in my program. Right? As my program, they said, listen, y'all go get your own therapy. And so I started when I was in Miami. I've not always been every single year of my life since then, right? So there have been lots of pockets, but about 2 years ago, I restarted, so I may go like once a month. I go, and I'm also that kind of person. I love to talk and to get things out, and it helps me. Like, I see different perspectives when I speak from when it is there in my head. When I speak, things become very clear. I'm extremely verbal, and I know that, right? So I'm like, so once a month I go to her, and we talk about things. We go in depth, about me, that kind of thing. So I value it 100%, and I stand behind my own recommendation. So how do we demystify this idea of mental health, of psychology? One of the important things to recognize is that we all have some kind of mental health that we need to think about. Some psychology is involved at every level in your life on a daily basis. Depression is something everybody can be familiar with, right? Everybody feels sad, depressed, something happened. You might have lost a job. You might have, something might have happened to somebody. You may have be grieving. You may be hurt, whatever it is, and you feel it, right? However, there's also a clinical depression. Person that is clinically depressed, now there is definitely a chemical response, right? A brain-based response, which happens with everything we do. But there's a process going on in their brain that is really, really making it very difficult for them to get up and just go. People make very, very slight comments all the time about people that are clinically depressed, people that may be thinking about suicide, or people that have died by suicide, things like that, that they could have done X, Y, Z. Why didn't you just talk to this person? Why didn't you just, etc.? Because it wasn't that simple. That's why, right? It was not that simple. A lot of times these individuals feel like they have done everything and nothing is changing. And they feel like every morning when they get up, or that they cannot get up, right? Because they cannot get up, they cannot face the world. This is just not the life that they would like to lead, and they have tried everything that they think within their power, so it has a whole series. It has the depressed feeling, right, which is very low, a low feeling for at least 2 weeks. This person has been experiencing this on a daily basis, and again, that's at least, but we know many people, they've been suffering with this feeling for months, right, or longer sometimes, right? We also have something that is really important. These are the two key ones for the clinical depression, is a feeling of, we call it anhedonia. And it means really that you have a loss of pleasure for the things that you used to like to do. So you used to like to play football. You don't have no motivation. You don't want to play football anymore. You used to play gardening. You don't do that no more, right? You're doing nothing is making you feel good. Right? So you have this loss of pleasure. And then coming with that, there are several other things that could be impacted, like your sleep. So maybe you're sleeping too much, sleeping too little, right? Can't sleep, or too much something, or the sleeping is impaired in some way, right? The eating too much or eating too little, right? So you may see people who are clinically depressed could either have lost a whole lot of weight unintentionally, or put on a whole heap of weight, right, in a short space of time, or not planned and not gradual weight gain kind of thing. Then we have things like thoughts of suicide, right? That's also a part of the picture. All of these things don't have to be there. The first two I mentioned have to be there for us to make that clinical diagnosis. But the other things can come kind of around it. Sometimes they have difficulty with concentration, right? So then now again, this is a change. So when you're clinically depressed, it affects your centers up here that monitor what we call executive functioning. And a big part of executive functioning is your attention and concentration. So that is affected, right? You feel demotivated, and all this loss, this sense of loss. It's really very strong. So it's not, again, something to be played with. It's not something that, when you feel sad today and you just snap out of it, it's not that. That is not it. So that's important to understand. The support of loved ones is very important with people that are clinically depressed, with anything, if you really think about it, right? Because support is actually social support. Good social support is actually something that can even increase your mortality rates, right? Generally, the studies have shown us that when people have that, they've shown it with cancer, right? And some of these chronic illnesses, they've shown it with depression. When you have that kind of social support, it can be very helpful, right? But at the same time, that person can't do everything. They cannot bring you out of a depression. But usually, when they are in the throes of a clinical depression, they cannot help themselves like that. That's why the social support becomes important. That might be the person that might say, you know what, come, let me go with you to the doctor. Let me go with you to the psychologist, to the therapist, to the wherever that they need to go do some exercise, because they can't, they literally have great difficulty motivating themselves to do anything. So all our research shows that both the medication and the therapy together are much better than any one by itself, So the psychiatrists and psychologists have recognized that long ago with the research, and they are much more collaborative than divisive. Certainly here in Jamaica, that is my experience. My hopes and dreams for psychology are that every person would be aware and would be cognizant of their own psychological processes or mental health, right? Recognizing that everybody has a mental health status. Everybody has a psychological process or emotional process or whatever. Everybody. It's how now is where we all get the complexities come in, right? The hows and the whys, right? But I hope for that knowledge. I hope for it to be such a household word, that everybody is, it's like nothing. I can just say to you, hey, how's your mental health today? Something like that, right? And it could be just normalized in that way, right? And that people wouldn't feel this level of stigma, around the therapy, around the all of these different things. For assessments, I hope that that the awareness is there for people that are, because we learn differently, we think differently, and it can be a helpful tool. It's not the end all or the be all, right? Because it's a process and no process is perfect, but that it can be very helpful to recognizing or to understanding some things about yourself, about your children, that would be helpful moving forward. There's just a recognition that every child is different, every person is different, that it can be just easy for you to feel like, okay, the teacher now try mash down your picnic, just trying to say, hey, listen, I think your child need an assessment. We see this here, we'd like to be able to help better. And that's what the teachers are trying to say, and how I see my role in all of this is, really college journey is at the height of where I see my whole life's work going, right? And it is built on that premise of understanding, I think, our people and what our people may need. I'd like to prove it, with the research that this is what our people need. And then I'd like to be able to offer the interventions that can help. And so I see that my role is part of that, like bringing all of it together in the best way that I can. But I know 100% I can't do it alone, so yeah.